Welcome back to the Remote Islander, guys. I'm here with a new guest today, and I'm your host, Sasha. And I want to say I've been really excited over the last few weeks because I know you guys know this is the podcast for all things remote work in the Caribbean and Latin America. And I feel like over the last few weeks, I've been finding my tribe, other people who are passionate and really passionate about remote work. And I have to say thank you to Priscilla, who I recently interviewed for putting me on to this new guest today. This is Oshido. So, Oshido, welcome to the Remote Islander podcast.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Of course, now you are no stranger to podcasts, right? Because I know you had your own podcast. So before we get into that, tell us, tell the remote islanders about yourself.
All right. So, as Sasha said, my name is Oshido. I'm actually a remote career strategist as well as
Yeah.
the chief operations officer at Careevo. What we do, we really focus on helping Caribbean professionals transition into remote work so that they can start earning what they deserve and stop struggling to make it by on a day-to-day basis. So that's the overall mission, and that's what we do here.
So what really struck me, and guys, I do my research, right? I don't come into these things unprepared. And we also had a little conversation before. But what really strikes me is how everybody gets into remote work, right? All our stories are different. And, there are multiple paths that take us to the remote work career. And I know you said you're a remote work career strategist, right? But what turned you on to remote work? What led you into this path and this career?
That might be a long story, it may be a short story. Let's see where it
We
goes.
have time. We have time.
All right. So I used to work remotely before, but this was on Upwork. I was more of a freelancer. I did that for maybe around a year and then I stopped. Now, back in 2024, when I was doing the podcast, the Under 9 to 5 podcast,
Yeah.
at that point, I wanted to bring more opportunities to people inside of the Caribbean because what happens is that during that podcast, we uncovered the fact that a lot of Jamaicans, a lot of Caribbean professionals on a whole, they don't think about planning out their career. And that is not by design. It's because when you turn 18, your your thought is to survive, right? So you end up running to find jobs as soon as possible. Some people migrate. And I grew up in a family where my dad left when I was in grade 4 and my mom left when I was an adult, and then she took my brothers as well. No, that is for the sake of better opportunities. And I've seen this a lot for so many people living in the Caribbean.
Yes.
So many families have been broken apart because they want to get better opportunities working abroad.
Yes.
So, what I aim to do here is I started this journey because I found it as a pathway to help Caribbean professionals stay in the Caribbean and earn US so that they can truly live a life that is not just surviving, but living and remain with their family members. And
Yes.
Careevo is the best way I see how to do that. My aim here is to bring remote jobs to the Caribbean, into the Caribbean on a whole, exclusively if possible. And to do that, I need to first educate the Caribbean market on how to approach the international remote job market, and then provide them with the resources, tools, and access needed so they can bridge that gap and gain access. My overall vision for this is one, I hope this will inspire Caribbean professionals who are abroad to come back home. Your family
Yes.
misses you, right? So that's what I'm aiming to do. The good thing here is that since I've been doing this, I've been getting a lot of comments, a lot of DMs saying that if you could help me get this job, I'd come back home because I'm tired of the States and things like that.
Yeah.
And those statements really motivate me, makes me feel as if I am doing the right thing. I am on the right path. So going into the remote job market has always been about bringing those jobs exclusively to Jamaicans and Caribbean professionals and allowing them to live a life that's worth living instead of just surviving.
Yes. And I think that's really an important point. When you turn 18, you're looking for something to just because that's when you now start to pay your bills, right? You're now
Yes.
realizing you are an adult. You have to
Mm,
do adult things, all the
mm.
things that we don't know exist before that age. A lot of us, it's a wake up call. What the world is really like hits you at that age, and you're really not sure what to do. And, I really like that your approach is an education approach because that is something I strive to do as well. You know, remote work is not is not a hidden thing. It is not a scary thing, but it can be for lots of people because
Yes.
it's an unknown, right? And as a people, as humans, you are afraid of the unknown, right? And I really, I'm interested to hear what led you to go from, your story, your mom, your dad leaving to creating Careevo. That, what really was the catalyst that really said, all right, this is what we need. This is what I want to do.
All right. That might be another long story.
We like
All right.
long stories here. Don't worry.
So Careevo didn't start out as Careevo. Careevo started for another purpose, right?
Right.
Careevo was first known as Apex Resume. Nobody
Okay.
knows that, but it's known as Apex Resume. No, what I used to do is I used to sell resume templates on Etsy,
Okay.
right? I
Yes.
used to sell resume templates on Etsy. I had a TikTok account specifically for that as well. And then it's just crazy how I transitioned from that to this. But I had that Etsy account, and then an opportunity came to me to get a grant, right? To get funding. And I'm like, oh, this is great. Let's see what we can do here. And at that point in time, we were like, Apex Resume isn't enough to really go ahead and get that grant. So we're going to transform it from Apex Resume. We did some research. We said we're going to call it Careevo. And we're going to change the services a lot instead of just focusing on selling resume templates. So about we focus on actually trying to help Caribbean professionals build on their career. And then we went that route. No, we didn't get the grants because
Well,
we didn't get the grant. I guess the business model wasn't foolproof enough. And then
right.
Careevo sat there for maybe another year, 6 months, somewhere thereabout. And we started the podcast after going with the same notion of helping Caribbean professionals build their career. And then after the podcast, well, actually during the podcast, we are like, what if we pivot more to remote jobs? Because we realized that they pay a lot more than local jobs. And a lot of
Yeah.
people, they were complaining about the salary in Jamaica. And I'm like, that is true. And there's nepotism as well. So if you have links, you get the job. If you don't get
Yeah.
the job. So we ended up pivoting from just professionals on a whole, moving over to the remote job market. And then from that point onwards, we start looking, all right, what is it going to take to actually land a remote job? So I say it's crazy because how all of this came to be, because the thought has been in my mind for years about people leaving the Caribbean to find better opportunities. And then years later, another opportunity came about where I was able to speak on professional development. And then months after that, I noticed that I could actually pivot into remote job. And this actually solved this issue that I had over here how long. And then I just merged it to and now I'm here doing both of them. So
So the stars
it just
aligned. It just worked out. I do. It
yeah,
is funny, and that is one of the things I absolutely love about remote work stories because no two paths to remote work is the same. It is
so
never
true.
the same. It
So
is everybody has this amazing story. Sometimes it's not even an amazing story. It's just a fluke. You happened to the one day you see a job and you're like, let me apply it. You happen to apply and you got it. It really is that is one of the things I love when I interview people, when I talk to other remote workers. How did you get into this? Because I will be honest, before the pandemic, I did not think remote work was a thing. I didn't think it was a possibility because what I grew up learning, I was taught just like you at 18, you go to university, you get a job, most likely a government job because you're set for life if you're in a government job.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's what we're taught, and you don't look outside for opportunities unless you absolutely have to, which is moving beyond that survival mode and like, how do I get, when you have a family, how do you make the most out of your career, how you get money for them because things not cheap and things keep going up. So
Yes.
how do you move out of that survival mode and a living mode? I really enjoy talking about that. But coming back to the two things I want to talk about, your podcast and Careevo. So let's talk about the podcast first. It was called Beyond the 9 to 5, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm in
So
that
I
department.
haven't seen anything about it. So is it still up and operational or have you moved on from there?
Haven't moved on, but we paused. We have hit
Pause.
pause
Okay.
that for a second, so we haven't touched on it, but we want to bring it back now, especially with how things are going with the remote job market and how we've developed in that space. We think that this would be a great opportunity to actually start back the podcast and provide actual practical guidance because I do provide a lot of tips on my TikTok video, short form videos and things
Yes.
along those lines. But I think a lot of people benefit from a structured conversation a lot of the time
Yes.
because
That's
there they
true.
can get the notes.
Yes. Yes. And then you have to cater for different audiences, right? People who like short form, people who prefer long form. I We could do a collab when you're ready to relaunch. Give me a
Definitely.
call and we could definitely do a collab. But I really, I just take a look, of course, at the content and I really enjoyed it because it was really, what is there beyond the 9 to 5? We spend most of our time working. You spend most of your day working, right? You want it to be something that is fulfilling, something that is worthwhile, something that you're getting paid. One of the things you talk about all the time is getting paid what you're worth.
Exactly.
That is something that, typically you get paid full stop, but getting paid what you're worth, what you went to university for, all those things, which you spend all that money to gain. That's a really big factor. And I really like, what I read about Careevo. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I made a note that your tagline is career, purpose, truth, right? For Careevo, right? What does that mean to you?
All right. And that also came about. So that's all right. All
So
right.
I'm asking all the hard questions today.
No, it's not that it's a hard question. It's just how everything is just interconnected without being
Yes,
intentionally done by us. It's just it's just all of that. And that's the reason why I believe that this is definitely a part of my calling. So
right.
career purpose true. Career is developing an actual career within your life. What we want you to do is we want to help you build an actual career. You might have started working out of survival, but that doesn't mean you have to stay in that state of survival. So we want to move you from survival over to developing a career. And that career can end up changing your life. And once you have a career where you're not chasing money, where you feel as if you're being paid your worth, where you can afford your lifestyle, then guess what? You will now fall into subconsciously, not consciously, your purpose. And then you might end up being more aligned with your purpose in life because at the end of the day, your purpose might be to change someone else's life. But because you're stuck in the survival mode, you end up not impacting that person's life the way it should be impacted. And truth is the truth of all of this. If you really get your career in line and you don't have to worry, you don't have to struggle, then naturally you're going to find your purpose. And that is the truth of life. You will end up impacting somebody else's life. And that is what we are aiming to achieve here. It's everything is interconnected in a way most people cannot see it.
Yes.
And that's what the tagline represents.
I like that, and I like that you say it's interconnected without you even realizing. One thing I've been saying quite often is hindsight is 2020 because, so many things have happened in my life as well
Mhm.
where that led me to this point, and I never thought I'd reach to this point. Like, if you had told me 5 years ago I would have a podcast and have myself out on YouTube and all
Right.
of those things, I would not have believed you because that's not the person I am, right? I was like,
Yeah.
worse yet, telling me I would have had a remote job back from a minor technical difficulty, guys. So I was just saying, I never thought I would end up in a remote job. I would not have thought this would have been the path for my life. Um, and it's really funny how things align and how things just fall into place. So that tagline, career purpose, truth, really resonated with me because of like, yeah, that's facts. So one of the things that really strikes me about your Careevo platform is that you talk about helping people get a job within 90 days, right? Now, that's a bold claim. That's a bold claim, right? Because especially in the job market, the way it is right now, let's be honest. Job market is a scary place. It can be a very volatile place. 1 minute there are lots of jobs. 1 minute is like, what's happening? You see uh, thousands of people applying for one position. Especially where now you're seeing a lot of layoffs in the US, that kind of thing. 90 days. How does that work?
Yeah, I know it's a bold claim, but believe me, I would not say it if it was not possible. Everybody that we've helped land a remote job so far has landed it in less than 90 days. That's the
Yeah.
first thing, right? So I have the track record to prove that I can do this in less than 90 days. That's the first. If I did not have that, I would not have made that promise, right? So everything with getting a remote job, it's not an easy task, but it's a very simple task. It's mainly repetitive. So once you have the mindset down, because that's where most people get stuck. But once you have the mindset down, the next thing becomes positioning yourself. And positioning yourself contains three things. One, an optimized resume, which we do, right? So you need a very well optimized resume that can showcase your value when it comes down to any remote job that you're applying. Once you have that, you'll also need a LinkedIn profile because if you're trying to get a remote job that pays well, they're going to look you up. So
Yeah.
you need a LinkedIn profile so that it represents you professionally online. It's that way when recruiters reach out to you, they can be like, all right, this person is actually trying to build a career. So maybe they'll take this job seriously.
Yes.
Next is you need an introduction script. Most companies ask you for a 1 to 2 minute of you just introducing yourself. I know they do
Yeah.
not want to know your name, age, or where you grew up. So we write that script for you as well. So what we do is optimize your resume, optimize your LinkedIn, write the introduction script for you. You record the introduction script. We do, we review it and let you know if anything needs to change based on your delivery. Give it back to you, send you out into the market. No, when we're sending you out into the remote job market, one, we give you a daily application routine. That's the first thing. Because if you don't have a routine, you cannot stay consistent.
No.
And the routine is pretty simple. And I could have only made that promise because I have the remote job board. If I did not have that, I could not have made a promise. So one is the remote jobs are now sent directly into my community. So they no longer have to go to 15 different websites to find remote jobs. They just need to turn on notifications and how the job board works is as soon as a job is posted within 5 minutes of it being posted, it's pulled in, right? So they get the job as soon as it is posted, which means that they're one of the first to apply. No, we also give them a job alignment tool. What this does is before they apply to any job, and this is mandatory for everybody, you will upload your resume and the job description in the job alignment tool. This is going to analyze your tool. This is going to analyze your resume and compare it to the job description. It's going to compare the title that they're hiring for. Is this title on your resume? If it's not, it's going to tell you and tell you, hey, you need to add this. The job description is looking for these 3 key responsibilities. Have you done these things before? If it's not on your resume, you will get a 0 for that section.
Yeah.
So it matches based on key responsibilities. Then it move on to the tools. Based on the job description, they're saying they want these tools on your resume. Do you have them on your resume? No. Then it's going to tell you you're not a good match, or add them if you have them. And
Yes.
5, it's going to also check what's the last one? I can't remember the last one. It's analytics. What is it again? Metrics, achievements.
Metric.
So
Okay.
the last one is
Measurable outcome. Yeah.
yes, outcomes and achievement. That's the last part on it. Based on the job description, it will tell you what outcome they're looking for the ideal candidate to have. And whether or not you have measurable metrics on your resume, it will compare and be like, all right, you're a good fit, you're not a good fit. It will also check the location of the job. That way you are not applying for jobs that don't accept people from your location. So
Right.
because we have all of this, and when it's finished, it generates a resume, it generates a report, and it sends that reports to you, and it breaks down everything for you and give you an overall score. And it tells you apply, don't apply, or make these changes before applying. What this does is instead of having people inside of the authority suite apply to every single job they can find, they apply to jobs that they align with the best. And because of that, they end up getting more interviews than other people. And when they get the interview, they get access to what we call the interview simulator. Now, this helps them to learn how to articulate their value. So communicate their value clearly in an interview and not focus on name, age, where you're from. They don't want to hear that. How to align your
No.
background to what the job is hiring for. And once they get the practice in, once they're following the routine, we tell them to apply to like 1 to 3 jobs per day. Nothing crazy. So with that now, it increases the chances of them getting invited to an interview, and them getting invited to an interview increases the chances of them getting hired. And repeating this every day for 90 days, more than likely you will land a job as long as you have the right years of experience and you're in the right industry. If you're in
Right.
construction and you're trying to get a remote job, it's going to be hard if you were the person laying the block, right?
Yeah.
That's going to be hard. So it has to be connected in a manner where it's applicable in the remote job market. So because we have this system, it's very simple, very automated, it's easy for anyone within the authority suite to stay committed to the process and just do it on a daily basis. And because
So
of
you
that,
meant
it does a day
go
number
ahead.
than a job.
So you mentioned the authority suite a couple times. So what is the authority suite? So because my audience doesn't know, so somebody looking up Careevo, what is the authority suite?
All right. So the authority suite, in simple terms, is an environment that we created to turn Caribbean professionals into an authority inside of their industry, right?
Okay.
A lot of people who are looking remote jobs, they tend to focus mainly on multiple different roles. Let's say, for example, you've worked as an admin assistant, customer service, bookkeeper, all of these. So now you're trying to get a remote job. You want to apply to everything because you have experience in everything. But generalists don't get hired. Specialists do, right? And
Yeah.
specialists gets paid the most, right? And you're in this for the money, more than likely. So what we do is we allow you to focus on only one of these areas. And then we turn you into an authority in that field. And building that authority looks like positioning your resume, positioning your LinkedIn, positioning your introduction, as well as providing you the jobs that align best with your background, helping you to prepare for interviews. So throughout the entire process, you are presenting yourself as an authority, which is the reason why it is called the authority
The
suite, because
authority.
that's who we turn you into.
Yeah. And that's something that people take for granted, that whole quantity versus quality application process. I have seen people, I've done it myself. Let's be honest. I've done it myself. When I lost my job, the first time I was applying, I would sit down behind my computer on LinkedIn, on job boards, everywhere, 4 hours of just applying, just applying, just applying, and realizing that maybe this was not the right approach, afterwards. Again, hindsight is 2020, right?
Yeah.
Knowing what I know now, I agree with you. When you have specialized skills, play up on those skills. When you have metrics in those skills, when you have measurable outcomes, when you can say, I onboarded 350 clients in a program, nobody else has that other than you. Put that on your resume. Put that on your resume. And I think that comes down to what we know as a resume in the Caribbean. I will be honest, because my resume of many years ago, I'm not going to say how many years ago because then you'll know how old I am. But my resume of many years ago, when I had my office job, looks nothing like my remote job resume now, or even a resume that I would use to apply for jobs. And I think that's something that people take for granted. When you are applying for a job on an international level, it looks completely different from applying at a local level. There is chalk and cheese. They do not even look alike. You have to be the person that stands out among the world, because that's who you're competing against now. And it does make it harder. And that does bring a lot of, I would say, that was a lot of fear for me. Like, how do I stand out around all the thousands of people in the world, And I think what you have talked about, where you are helping people know what you're applying for, know if you are a good fit, that's a big deal. Because a lot of people I've seen, you applying for things because you did it once 5 years ago, and you have it on your resume, and it's like, yeah, but that's not what they're looking for. You
Sir.
have to be, you have to be the person that they can look at your resume and say, I want them to come for an interview. Because that's your first impression. And I think that's another thing that people don't realize. Your resume is your first impression. Your LinkedIn sometimes is your first impression, depending on how the application process went. So you can't have a LinkedIn profile that has no picture. That is a pet peeve of mine, because I don't know if you're a real person in this day and age of AI, right? I don't know if you are a real person with a real background or in career history. I need to know that this is a human being that I am working with, I'm communicating with. So I really like that you have broken down the process into this little block of what we need to do. Because that's something I talk about all the time. The it's not a scary thing. You just have to realize where you stand, where you're gonna be a best fit, and align yourself properly to that. I really like that. That is your workflow. That really is an impressive thing. So in terms of your remote job board, because that's one that really struck me. That's actually how I found out about you, because you came up on my Instagram talking about a remote job board. And I was like, a Caribbean remote job board. Wow. That is impressive, because I will be honest, I've done the job search a few times, and going onto LinkedIn and Indeed and all those other job boards, frustrating. Very, very frustrating. Because sometimes you find a remote job, right? You find, quote unquote, a remote job. But when you get into it, it says US only. When you halfway through the application, it asks, are you located in the US? And it's like,
Exactly.
so how is it remote if you're
You need
asking me if I'm in the
locate.
US, if you need me to be in the US, right? So talk me through how that came up, working on a Caribbean remote job board, first of all, and tell us about it.
All right. So that idea has been in the pipeline since 2024. So it's because what I've always wanted to achieve is turning the Caribbean into a central hub. I've been saying it a lot with my team, turning the Caribbean into a central hub for remote jobs.
Yeah.
And one of the way that, so here, this is the process. Stage one is education. First, before I even think about making the jobs available, I first need to educate the public on what is a remote job, what it takes to get a remote job, break that limiting mindset and get them into a mental place where they be like, you know what? I want to get a remote job. I know it's going to take some time. I am going to do this properly. Once the educational campaign is at a certain point, I can then bring in access. And that's where we're entering into now. Because if I provide access without educating first, then I'll just be sending a lot of unprepared candidates into the remote job market. So that's the reason I'm trying so hard to, with the education portion. And you and Chris being in this market helps a lot, right? It helps a lot. So because of that, no, it's time to build the centralized hub for remote jobs in the Caribbean. No, what this will be, it will be a website that will basically pull the remote jobs from other websites that are accepting people from the Caribbean and worldwide. So it will not pull in any jobs that a Caribbean professional cannot accept. No, a Caribbean professional specifically, even though anybody anywhere in the world will be able to use the remote job board because it's also pulling in global position. But if that global position is restricted to a certain region and the Caribbean isn't a part of that, then it won't be pulled into the job board.
Got
So I
it.
want to give everybody a central location. Stop going to this website, that website, this website, that website. Just come right here. Spend some time searching through what's here. You will find something because this is coming from all of those websites put into one central location. So the website is meant to be the central hub for people in the Caribbean who want to get a remote job.
I like that. I really like that because you are right. That part of the job search, crazy frustrating because
Yep.
I think you don't know when to start. And when you do start, you find yourself going down this rabbit hole because there's so much and you're inundated with, job opportunities that may not work for you. Or if they do, by the time you see it, hundreds of people have applied it. So the chances of you getting through don't make any sense. You have all those factors to take into consideration. So I like that you are bringing the information early, but not only that, you are preparing people because that is one of the biggest things I've seen as a barrier to entry for us. Being prepared to be a remote worker, especially when you have been an office worker. And here's what I've experienced, right? Because you have less accountability, you have to go to an office, you have to be on time because you have to clock in, right? Somebody is checking that, you have to sign in, that kind of thing. You find that discipline that you have for office work, because it's not on you, that really does need a mindset change because, when I was talking to Pris, she was saying she's literally in her room with her bed, you know, that's your office. So you have to be disciplined enough to get up, get yourself ready, and start working when you're supposed to work. Because there's this big myth that remote work is do what you want when you want.
Exactly.
And it is not that. It is not that. You still have to do what you're expected to do when you're expected to do it. But there is freedom because you don't have to get up and battle traffic to go to an office, right? You also don't have, in my experience, once I get my work done, right, and I'm doing it to the level I'm supposed to, my boss is happy. Nobody is there yelling at you or be like, oh, you didn't do this. It's not like that. I have not had a micromanaging remote work boss since I started, that is something I quite enjoy because I'm self-motivated, but those are the mindset shifts that have to come with remote work. In your experience, because I know you have coaching experience, right? What are some of the things you've seen as a barrier to entry when people are coming in to remote work? What are those things you have to kind of battle against? The mindset, the things that they think it is when it really isn't. Have you experienced anything like that?
Yes, the mindset is the biggest battlefield. It is the biggest battlefield because here's the thing. No, a lot of these people who want to get a remote job, the ones that complain, I'm talking about the ones that complain here,
Yes.
they are unable to get a local job, right? They're unable to get a local job or they choose not to get a local job. Now, when you are looking at a local job, you're competing against what? Maybe 500 people. It's so much.
So
No,
much, yes.
you are going on a global scale, and the world has what? 8 billion people? Now, keep
Right.
in mind, not everybody will be applying for these jobs.
No.
However, the resume that you currently have will not work. The biggest mindset is getting people to understand that one, getting a remote job takes effort. You will
Yes.
not get it just because you apply. I'll see people apply to these remote jobs and they're like, but I have 12 years of experience and they said they only wanted three. And I didn't. I said, send me the resume.
Mhm.
This is why it didn't work. Most of them, the resume is mainly company that you work, years that you spend there, title that you had. No bullet points.
No.
Nothing. Like, what does that say? There is no value there. The biggest roadblock, the biggest mindset roadblock is getting people to understand that you need to articulate your value. Saying you have
Your
12 years of experience means nothing because guess what? At the end of the day, somebody with your exact same position can do the same exact things you do if you just have your roles and responsibilities.
yeah.
But you and someone had same position, thing that from two different country. One of you have on your resume roles and responsibilities. This one over here is telling us that they did this task using this tool, which led to this result, and it impacted the company by this. I helped the company move from here to here. What do you think I'm going to hire? The one with the most evidence. It's the same thing as if you're on Amazon and you're looking to buy a product you've never bought before. You're going to look for reviews. In
Yep.
this is the reviews and the proof is your bullet points. The
Yep.
mindset comes from you just need to understand that getting a remote job itself is a process. And if you don't change your mindset and how you approach the market, you will never land a remote
Mhm.
job. Or let me rephrase. I see some people saying that you should apply to these companies, specific companies, I won't call their name, because there's no interview. You just apply and you start working. If that works for you, that is fine. But if you're looking to build a career, I can tell you right now, those companies don't pay well and the working condition is not the best. Right?
Right.
If you want to build a career working remotely, the first thing you have to do is change your mindset and how you approach this. You will need to do more than you need to do when you're looking at a local job. That is just the fact. And if you are fighting against that fact, I'm sorry to say, but you have a hard time getting our mindset.
I agree. Yes. And that is something that I think is the hardest thing for people to understand because it's not a tangible thing, right? You can fix the remote and you can see it, right? You can
Mm.
fix your LinkedIn profile and you can see it. You can't fix somebody's mindset and see it, right? There's nothing that you can't open up your head and tinker in there and make the change. It's either you accept it or you don't. It's either you do it or you don't. It it really is one of the biggest issues that I see. Changing your mindset to be a remote worker because there's so much that goes not just when you're starting, but when you are in it as well. Because getting yourself into it is one mindset. Continuing it is another mindset because there are days when you're working from home, you're in your home office, and you don't want to work, but you have to. In some cases, you don't have PTO, that kind of thing, because you have such a flexible schedule, all of those things. But it is such a big shift that I see people have to go through, and is one of the hardest things to go through because I really can't answer why. I really don't know why it's such a hard thing. But I like that you are focused on that and that you can see who it will work for and who it won't work for unless they accept that that mindset has to change. All right. So coming back to what you were talking about in terms of educating people and then moving into the remote job. But I know we've spoken about it and I've seen some of your posts on LinkedIn as well. The one that really struck me was you talking about creating some sort of remote work conference for the Caribbean. So what really is the catalyst for that? And tell us, is that happening?
Yes, it is definitely going to happen. And sorry, you asked a question, but I didn't hear it. You said what was the
What really why a conference? Why get involved in something like that?
all right. So one, yes, it's definitely going to happen. It's in the works, guys. It's in the works. No, the reason for this is because one voice is not loud enough in the market, right? And separated, we are not loud enough. Separated, we cannot educate enough. But united, we can reach a lot of people. We can change a lot of lives. And the post I replied to, the post I replied to with that was one made by Krishna, where he was talking about mindset. And it just ticked me off because I've been battling mindset for such a long time. And I'm like, guys, let's come together and do an actual workshop, a conference, an online seminar, something to educate people on mass that
Yes.
getting a remote job is actually possible. It's a simple process, but you have to change your mindset because it's simple, but it takes effort. So it's an effort to um increase the awareness on what it takes to get a remote job. And I wanted to do this mainly because I wanted to work with the people I tagged, right? I believe that if I had known about you at that point in time, I would have tagged you as well. I'm telling you the truth,
Me in the next
right?
one. Tag me in the next one for sure. But yeah, I listen, whatever's happening, I am going to be there. Guys, we are going to be there because I firmly believe in that. I really think we are stronger together than we are apart. And just to kind of touch on the post that he's talking about, the mindset. The post was talking about us, it was hiding the jobs or posting something to do with that effect where we were basically gatekeeping. That's the word. We were where we as who are remote workers are gatekeeping jobs, right? And why we do that. Now, in my experience, I've had a lot of people in my messages because I do this. I'm interested. And I'm like, interested in what? I don't have a job. I don't have anything that I can give you. But more than that, I don't know you. I can't vouch for someone I don't know, right? If you are my friend, I know your work ethic. I know maybe someone who knows you as well and they know your work ethic. I have no problem, you know, vouching for you and helping you out. But you can't just expect the work to be, I have a job, I know about my organization, drop the link. That's not how that works, because it's my reputation on the line. I have to make sure that you are qualified. There are a lot of steps before you can get a job. And I want to tie that back into what you were saying just now is that getting a remote job is possible. It is simple, but it's not easy. And that is one of the things I think people struggle with because they think, oh, it's online. I just put my stuff out there. I have a LinkedIn profile with a couple things and we all good to go. That's not it. That's just the beginning. There are specific things you need to get done. You have to put those metrics in. You have no idea how many times I've seen people's LinkedIn profile. I'm like, I still don't know what you've done. I don't know what you've accomplished in your career. There's nothing that tells me that you've done anything in those 12 years other than worked at X place, you know? So I really, I really like that, that we are on the same page because this really is one of my pet peeves as well when people say certain things. So when I saw that post, I was like, I read the first post, which was the gatekeeping. And I was like, no. And then I saw your post on it. And I was like, Yes, that's where we need to go. That is definitely where we need to head. We need to come together and, like you said, educate. And then once you have the knowledge, we can send you out into the remote work world, right?
It's like school. They
So,
don't send you before they educate you.
well, most of us, most of us, because listen, I've been to school with some people and I've been like, how you graduate? Really and truly, how you graduate?
Fair. Fair.
Let's be real. So I really like, what you're doing and I want to be a part of it. So please tag me you have my email, send me a message, whatever. We are going to be a part of it. And I want to come back to your social media presence because, I'm now getting into following remote workers. Um, what is your your background in social media? Because I know you were doing marketing before, right? So what led you to go into social media, into Instagram, TikTok, and just reach out to masses that way?
All right. So I have background in social media marketing and management because I had a company before this one that was focused on marketing. No, the reason why I decided to go with putting myself out there publicly, disclaimer, guys, I don't like the camera, all that, but I love to talk, right? I'm gonna take up the view. When I take up the phone and I start talking, it just sounds like it makes sense. So I don't share it. Right. I love to provide advice and guidance, and I have always wanted to have an impact on the community and the youths and society on a whole. And the best way to do that is with social media. So that's the reason I decided to start creating content along those lines. And that's how I ended up where I am right now. Because really and truly, social media is the best way to reach a lot of people and have a big impact without meeting a lot of people. So that's the reason why I decided to go that route.
Now, you post a lot, right? You post a lot more than I do. And to be fair, I don't post a lot. So I need to be better on that. But you post a lot. You have all these businesses running at the same time. How do you prevent burnout?
I don't. I wish I could give you an answer like, yeah, I do this, I do. I do not. I do not have a system preventing burnout. I am implementing one. I used to get burnout a lot because content takes a lot and to stay consistent takes a lot. So what I end up doing now, I have periods or time frames based on the projects that I'm working on. I'll commit more hours, less hours. But the thing that causes burnout is always thinking that you need to do everything right now at the same time. And because you end up overwhelming yourself, you end up burning out and you have to take a break. I got to the point where I had to take 2 weeks break from work, videos, everything. I was burnt out flat. But what I'm doing now is I commit to working like I work 12, 13 hours per day. That's what I work. I'm a workaholic. And then I have my hard stops. And then when I do stop, I do hobbies. I read manga a lot. So I read mangas and things along those lines. And then what I actually found work the best for me is I have a lot of responsibilities. I write scripts, I edit videos, I build automations, I build websites. I do a lot, right? But everything triggers a different creative section of my brain. So when I am writing scripts, if I am burnout from writing scripts, it doesn't mean I am burnout entirely from doing any different type of work. And I love
Okay.
building automations. So that re-energized me. So when I'm tired of script writing, I go ahead and I build some automations, get me back motivated and everything. And then I come back over to writing some more scripts. And then when I get burned out again, I do something else and I come over to video editing. And I have to really just bounce between them like that because if I don't, leave me, I'll be flat out in that bed.
I hear you. I have learned I need a stop time. So like I need a start time and a stop time. And once my stop time has reached, That's it. You're not getting me for anything work related, nothing like that. I have my off switch, and that is one of the things that I have had to implement because I found with my remote job and remote work on a whole, because I could do everything from my phone, I was doing everything from my phone all the time. There was no end to when I was doing it. So 2 o'clock in the morning, I hear my phone ping and I would pick it up and look at it and see what it was. I'm like, no, you're supposed to be sleeping. You're not supposed to be going still. So yeah, I get what you're saying. I like to switch tasks as well when I am tired of one task. Let's go to something else. Let's turn that part of the brain off, turn something else on. Yes, for sure. So I want to ask you a question that I asked all my guests, and that is, Oshido of 5 years ago, if you had to go back and give him advice on remote work career, as now a remote career strategist, what would be that advice you would give him? So, looking to give possible remote workers or even remote workers who exist and are looking for a better opportunity, because that happens as well. You're in a remote job, you don't like it, you're not getting paid as much as you were hoping to. That's also the reality. Talk to us. What is your advice?
All right. So in a case like that, let me put Oshida 5 years ago in a predicament. You are desperate for anything you can find, and you think remote job is the answer. You have the experience, but you don't know how to go about it. I would say if you're desperate to get a remote job, do not look at a remote job. The reason being is because desperate people are the people who get scammed, right? I know it feels like the place is burning down. Maybe it is. And there are options. And my recommendation to you is if you can just sit with yourself and talk with yourself for a little bit and find out whether or not the place is really burning down. If it is not burning down and you want to get a remote job, set a timeline. Give yourself 30 to 90 days to get the job. Do not try to get it tomorrow. Do not try to get it in a week. Give yourself some time. You will need that mental breathing space. Believe me, you will. Once you have that, you want to focus on your optimizing your documents. First, you have experience in almost everything. So one, and stick to it. Please, you are a specialist. Whether you want to know it or not, whether you believe it or not, pick one, specialize, and put your best foot forward. Research the market, optimize your documents, and target the right roles. Be consistent, and don't let fear allow you to make a decision you might end up regretting. Right? So don't be led by fear. Take your time. You've got this. Whether you believe in yourself or not, I believe in you. You just need the right guidance, and the right guidance is out there, so you can find it. Okay, got to.
I'm
Yes.
gonna I'm gonna borrow from something I've heard you say, which is success comes from trying consistently, not trying harder.
Yes.
And I think that is definitely what you're trying to say. Be consistent. You don't have to apply to 1,000 jobs. You can apply to, let's do 100, but the 100 ranked jobs for you. So I want to tie in now Careevo, right? If this is you really want a remote job and you're really prepared to do the work, because guys, you have to do the work. We're not out here to lie to you. We're not out here to say, hey, remote work is easy and is a walk on the beach, right? It is
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
It is a great opportunity, yes, but you have to be prepared to put the work in to get a remote job, to keep your remote job, and to grow in your remote job, right? So I want Oshido, tell us how we can find Careevo. What is the process? Do you vet people? How does that work?
So you can find Careevo you can find us anywhere on social media. It's best to find me. And you can find
Yes.
me by just type in Oshido Christie on TikTok, LinkedIn, Instagram, Threads, or X. you will find
Or
me.
Google.
Or
If you go, yeah. So that's what I did. I Googled your name and it's the first thing that comes up. So
or go and you can find us on YouTube at Careevo. Right? Type in Careevo on YouTube and you'll be able to find us. No, the entire process is once you decide to sign up, first there's a disclaimer. Before you decide to join the authority suite, we only work with people who has at least 3 years of experience in 10 different industries. Should I list these off? Let me know.
well, yeah, that's not a problem.
All right. So we work with people with 3 years of experience or more, 3 or more years of experience in sales, customer support, legal support, admin support, operations, project management, software development, recruiting, bookkeeping and finance, and marketing and media. So those are the categories we help because those are the categories that post the most jobs on a day-to-day basis. So
Exactly.
we want to ensure that if we are helping you, there are jobs out there for you.
Yes.
So that's how you'll be able to find us. You can go to careevo.co/Oshido or careevo.co/authority, and you can join the authority suite that way.
So I will have all links for Oshido in the show notes so you guys can reach him that way as well. And I will have him a little bio about him on the website with his links as well. So you can go there as well. All right. But Oshido, thank you so much. This really touched me because you are just as or even more passionate than I am about remote work, you know? This is my career purpose truth, remote work, full stop. And talking about it, talking to others about it, bringing the stories of other people like myself, that is what I want to continue to do. So this has been exciting for me. I was very excited about this interview. Like I've been ready since an hour ago, just trying to get my nerves down because it's still nerve wracking, guys. Sorry to say, I'm very nervous when I do interviews. But I was really looking forward to this one because I have been looking for my tribe when it comes to remote work, and that is something I think we don't talk about. It could be isolating. Remote
Mhm.
work can be isolating. So finding your tribe is when that happens, it's like light bulb moments, the heavens open, all of those things, because you're excited to find people who understand you and you can have these conversations with,
Mhm.
Oshido and I had a call the other day where we met and we talked and we talked, we talked. And only because, we needed to stop that was the only reason we came off the call because we love remote work. So thank you so much for coming on today. Please keep me posted on the conference or what you want to do because the Remote Islander and my Remote Islanders are going to be a part of it. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. Honestly, you asked a really great question. I love the interview. You have no reason to be nervous. You're great. You are
Thank you
great.
so much.
And
Thank
Chris
you so
gave us
much.
the name Avengers. That's what person's calling us.
Yes,
The, re-
yes, she did.
the remote Avengers. That's what person's calling us. So
She
we found
is.
it
So,
right. We're bending it.
yes. All right, guys. So stay tuned for another episode of the Remote Islander and we'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.